Welcome to Learning as I Grow 365, a storytelling adventure. Today, I want to talk about being parented by my child. As a parent, you have all these great ideas about raising strong, confident, independent, autonomous human beings. But the catch is, you want them to be all of that for the world, but you don't always want them to be that with you. Right? You don't want them always questioning the choices that you've made, seemingly thinking it's in their best interest. You don't always want them asking you to justify um, your decisions towards them, despite having raised them to kind of be confident to say, okay, this does not make sense to me. Could you help me understand why? Um, like with my 11-year-old, we've moved from tropical Jamaica to a place that gets to, sub minus 20s. We've recently had minus 40 somethings, right? And so, as the parent, you kind of hope, or not even hope, um, the way I was raised is when an adult tells you do X or do Y, you just sort of, even if you're dubious, you work with it, right? Um, and so I guess at some point in my brain, I was like, oh, that's not the necessarily the best way. So let's raise our children so they can clarify or input an expectation. And then you get an 11-year-old who doesn't want to dress appropriately for the kind of weather that we're having. And you have to dig deep to find that patience and to regulate in a way where you can communicate effectively why, though you've not yet experienced frostbite, I would rather you not have to deal with frostbite. And I know that's some abstract thing in your mind, but I'd like to not have to encounter my child having frostbite, right? And this came back to me when I wasn't feeling well, and so I, my daughter would always ask, "Have you done your video already, or whatever?" And then she came to me, and those executive skills on display. She's like, "Mommy, why don't you do a bunch of videos when you have the time instead of doing one video every day?" And I'm like, yeah, I see you learning to be organized and all of that, and thank you for the input. But also thank you for putting me to shame, like, lady, all these organization skills that you use to plan for everything else in your life. Why are you not treating this more seriously? I think is, well, that's what I heard. I'm not sure if that's what she was trying to say, but that's what I heard and appreciated. Um, and again, brought me back to laughing about how when your parenting approach gets mirrored back at you or reflected back at you, how sometimes it's quite entertaining. Um, Other times it can be frustrating, but in this moment, it was just joy. I was like, all right, girl, I see you developing those um, planning and organizing skills and, being proactive kind of thing. And I felt pride. But then there are other moments where if, you have to be prepared for that reflection of how you approach your children and how you approach parenting, because sometimes it's gonna reveal things that you're not necessarily going to be happy with. For example, are you having double standards about things, um, in the house as it relates to you versus your child. For example, are you expecting to be able to hold your child accountable for commitments they have made to you, but then you're not allowing your child to hold you accountable when you've broken a commitment or failed to live up to a commitment and those sort of things? That is a part of it that you're not necessarily prepared for from the outset, but it's something to consider. Um, but as for me, I every day I wake up trying to find ways to enjoy this dimension of my life, and to tap into as many positive experiences for myself and my family as is possible. But I'm not going to pretend that it's always going to feel great. um there are going to be times when you're going to be like, wow. And in those moments, how do you make amends? Apologies don't always get it done. But try to be consistent in showing that you are committed to facilitating the best outcome for your children and being the best version of yourself, um, as they change and evolve. And change and evolve is a whole other story that we can talk about in another episode. So share with me, what are some of the ways that your interaction with children are mirrored back at you or reflected back at you? And what sort of epiphany did that evoke for you? And how has that caused you to be an even better version of yourself as we all trod this earth?